Um, I'd like to start just once again thanking our fans for the trip to Atlanta. Talk to the players about it, how fortunate we are to have such a great group. The walk into the venue was outstanding for our guys, for our team. Obviously, looking forward to having a home crowd, being back at Lane Stadium, Maroon Effect, and the best environment in all of college football. It's going to be an exciting Saturday night, like we all know. Great opponent coming in Vanderbilt. A ton of respect for Clark and what they've accomplished, the momentum they have, the players they have. Coaching staff's doing a great job. They did a nice job in their opener against Charleston Southern. I got to play a lot of guys, and we'll have our hands full. Short week, 6 days to get ready. We had to adjust our schedule, obviously, got a big week. We've got to double down on discipline and some accountability on execution and finishing catches and making some better decisions in some areas. But I was proud of our effort, our mentality, our compete level. Gave ourselves a chance, just made too many mistakes against a good team. So looking to correct all that, which we certainly can this week, and we started that last night with a heavy correction period and, out in the indoors. So we've got to take care of our bodies. We've got a combination recovery day / Tuesday practice today to get these guys back ready to go. So I'll take some questions.
You mentioned the short week. What do you have to cut out in preparation or condense to make it work?
Yeah, so we went back. We've had a couple of models on a short week, but we went back to the Miami week last year after the Rutgers game and kind of how we approached that. We've, you lose that off day, which isn't just for your players. You can do some recovery, take some things off of practice Tuesday and Wednesday, but for your coaches, that's a full day of preparation. So everybody's kind of doubled down there, but it's a balance of giving enough reps where we can get a feel for their offense, their defense, their kicking game, get a little bit of compete against each other to make sure we don't lose that. But most of our attention will be, with our look squads getting ready for their particular schemes.
Is there a certain challenge for this coaching staff and getting this team to put last week's game behind? It was one that you had prepared so long for in the season, have the result you don't want, and then get ready in 6 days.
Yeah, I think a lot of times that's the case. You do spend more time on week one. And we got into Vanderbilt a little bit in preseason camp, just some uniqueness with their offense. But that's why I like that we practice the day after the game. We go out, we make corrections. We introduced Vanderbilt at the end of practice last night and spent 15 minutes, working on those guys, kind of, move on, close one chapter, open the next, and get ready for these guys. The guys are excited to be at home, to play at Lane Stadium. They're excited to play Vanderbilt again. They're excited to play a second SEC opponent. Diego Pavia, obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the country, in my opinion. We saw it firsthand. He took down number 1 Alabama last year, had a great year. He looks even better to me right now. He's a dual threat guy again this week that can beat you with his legs, beat you with his arms. He's got a nice arsenal of receivers that got good speed, particularly the Sherrill kid we know. The running back looked fantastic in week 1. The tight end's one of the better ones in the country. They got all their linebackers back. They got both corners back. I think 96, one of their best D linemen. And then 5 didn't play in the opener. He's a 6'7" guy, imposing presence. We got our hands full. It's a very talented football team.
Brent, you mentioned the short week. Offensive line, that starting 5 played every snap. How important is it going to be for them to heal up and get ready? And do you expect to get some rotation guys back for this week?
Yeah, we'll see. Brody and Muskrat both are right now. They're possibilities for us. This is a big day and kind of getting those guys back going, and then we got to continue to get that other bunch ready. Matt and his assistants keep developing those guys. It's a good group. They're just a little green right now, but so we got to keep working on our depth at that position for sure. We did get a lot of snaps out of that first group, and we came out of it in pretty good shape. a few nicks and bruises, but nothing that would keep those guys from having a good week.
At linebacker rotation, looks like at will it's Keller or Short. Short, I think, graded out pretty well for the snaps he played. What did you like about seeing out of him, and did he earn himself some more playing time?
Yeah, I think the combination of those two guys will be good for us moving forward. I thought both of them did some good things, certainly some things we got to correct, but it's a good tandem there. I think the same thing at Mike. You know, when you look at Caleb Santiago, who plays some rush snaps for us as well. Caleb Spencer's done a nice job in some situations. I think you'll see more of him as the season progresses. But, you know, it's a good group. They got to keep coming.
When you looked back at the punt return they had, what stood out? Did anything new stand out to you on film about just the breakdown and how you guys prepare for it going forward next time?
Yeah, I think first of all, we coach these guys to stack. You know, once they beat those coverage players or those corners out there, once they beat them, to stack them, to be in position to take your shot and make that returner go east-west. We didn't do that. We did it all the other snaps in the game. And on that particular snap, we didn't stack them very well. We didn't take our shots. And then on the other side, they viced both gunners, doubled them up. Excuse me, we didn't do a good job getting off of them. And we had some other guys inside not do a great job. You know, even at the second level with the shield, the contained element and things, there was a couple of breakdowns on the play. And honestly, they done a pretty good job all night until that snap.
When you had a chance to review the film, look at Kyron's play, what did you come away with? And, what's that conversation like heading into this week? Obviously, same thing with the rest of the team. You know, fresh slate, game at home. You got to push it past you.
Yeah, I think it's always about, embracing where we need to be better. What didn't we do well enough? And Kyron's, he's always hardest on himself. But there's some throws he'd like to have back. I think a couple down the stretch there to Benji. He could have put that one in a better place for Marcellus, even though I think that's a catchable ball. For me, I'm old school. You get two hands on it, you ought to catch it. And I think Benji had two hands on one of those. But they can be better throws, in important deals. But, he threw 5 or 6 away to whether the protection wasn't good enough or we didn't get open or just they had a good defense. He made a good decision. Rather than taking a sack, he got the ball thrown out of bounds. I think, and then we had a couple of drops that we can't have, by pretty sure-handed guys. So, but, he's got to sit in there. And when he sits in there and steps up and good footwork, and that's when he's at his best. I look for him to bounce back and, play a really good ball game for us.
Back to Kyron, he took a lot of deep shots, especially one-on-ones. Is that something within Monty's offense that you like to see, especially get some explosive plays going?
Yeah, I think when you got guys that can go up and make those catches, because none of them were easy really, but contested catches to me are a real positive trait in wideouts, and we've got a couple that can do that. And Kyron's got a strong arm; he can get the ball down the field. I've always wanted that to be part of who we are, and it's pulling the trigger and calling it. Because if it's not complete, it was a 1st and 10 shot. You now behind the chains at 2nd and 10. But man, those chunk plays were nice the other night.
You're down to 4 running backs on the depth chart after having 6. Or you feel like you're almost set on your 3 guys you want in that running back rotation?
I think obviously Hawkins is going to be part of the equation. PJ's part of the equation. Coney got a few tough yards the other night. Hopefully Terrion's back this week. So we're still a work in progress there. We're still a little bit by committee. Even though Hawkins got a ton of reps out there, a ton of snaps. That's a good conversation for us this week that started yesterday about that rep distribution in that room. So it's still a work in progress, I'd say.
Are you encouraged by Stewart's progress for this week?
I was encouraged yesterday. Like everything that the medical staff wanted him to do yesterday, he did, which was a real positive. Now he's got to take another step today.
You said after the game, you talked about the defense. You said the game plan was the right one. I'm curious, offensively, what did you think of the game plan there? What did you think of how Monty adjusted to the kind of looks that South Carolina was given?
Yeah, I thought there was a few things that could help our offense be a little more diverse. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but we had some conversations yesterday and today about some things we can add to the offensive plan that I think help us. When you look at what they were able to do up front defensively, Southgate big and strong, and those guys were as billed. 6 was a problem, not just in the throw game, but in the run game. I think there was more pressure just a hair sooner than what it felt like in a game when I watched that film. There was more pressure that was felt that affected plays. So we've got some elements that we've talked about that I think we all think can complement what we're doing.
This time last year, going into the Vandy game, you were sort of guessing a little bit what
Yeah.
kind of offensive scheme they would have had, watching New Mexico State film and stuff like that. Do you have a better sense this year going into it, or a better idea of perhaps how to attack that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think most folks have a better understanding of who they're going to be, what this quarterback's all about, how good he really is. I mean, this guy, to me, if Sellers is a Heisman candidate, which I think he is, this kid's got to be in the conversation. He's a dynamic player. They couldn't do what they do offensively without this guy, so he's pretty special. But I think you look at what they do, and they're innovative as coaches, and their offense allows for creativity and different things. I'm sure we'll see something that they didn't have to or need to show against Charleston Southern. They were up 28-0 at halftime. There's a bunch they left in the, on the call sheet.
At your cornerback rotation, seemed like you went older with IBM and Caleb there, and then got in Dante, both Williams as well. Do you feel like getting those two older guys, moving IBM from nickel to corner, helped? And it seemed like Cash and Kovo played pretty well at nickel.
Yeah, we felt pretty good about the rep rotation, what we were doing there. I think T. Will probably needs a few more plays, and Christian's a guy. They're all playing both sides right now, which is good. And I agree. I think Koval and Cash did some good things at the Nick position. IBM is going to continue to train there, and against certain style offenses or certain slots, you can see IBM at nickel. But and I like Christian Williams. This is a guy that's been beat up. Injuries. It's been a heck of a road to recovery for him. So I'm so happy and excited for him that he was out there playing with us. He's going to help us on special teams. He's going to help us on defense.
Not that guys necessarily need extra motivation going into a game, but is last year an extra motivator for this group? Do you have to bring that up? I'm sure it's in the consciousness of most of these guys.
Yeah, I don't think, we talked briefly about it in the locker room, but I don't have to say that to these guys. They know. And really, it's about us. This is the game. We got to go win the game. We got to do enough things right to go win the game as coaches and players. And there's not a better opportunity than this one. It's at home. It's against an SEC opponent that we're familiar with. It's at night. We have a great crowd, TV. So, these guys will be plenty motivated.
Let's go to Zoom for a couple.
On Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to ask questions for Coach Pry, and we'll open it to questions. We'll start with Ryan, please.
Yeah, Coach, how did playing a high-caliber opponent like South Carolina in Week 1 help you evaluate these guys in game action, and will that lead to changes for Vanderbilt?
Yeah, it was definitely a good test for us. I think, I've always kind of been back and forth on it over the years. You could play a lesser opponent and not learn as much about your team, or you could, go out and have a pretty big test in Week 1 and figure a few more things out, with the win opportunity not being as great. So it's we learned a lot about our team, and we could be pretty specific and poignant about the areas we need to improve on to make sure that we're a better team in Week 2 than we were in Week 1.
Any final questions for Coach Pry on Zoom? Okay, Travis.
How would you evaluate Altuner and kind of how he performed in his first big snaps?
Yeah, I thought he did pretty well. For a redshirt freshman that hadn't played a snap, he got beat a couple of times. He's still got some technique things. He's got to keep getting stronger, getting bigger. But, man, he's an athlete. He's a competitor. He's smart. Honestly, the chop block on Coney, Altooner's not really supposed to mess with that guy. So it was a combination of both of those guys. So there were some subtle things that hurt us a little bit that he can clean up, and he will. He's very coachable. As I said, he's smart. So, I think it's a good game for him to build on, much like the rest of our team, to be quite honest.
There are a bunch of defensive linemen who made plays, but Elijah Fall had that strip sack of Sellers. What did you see on that play, the move he made? And he's not a guy that we've been talking about. There are a lot of guys you brought in there, but it seems like he's really earned some more playing time.
Yeah, he's a guy we've been excited about. We were honestly very excited to get him. It was, we weren't sure we would. And, he played down at Georgia Southern for a friend of mine. And so we kind of knew what we were getting. But, he's nearly 300 pounds. He's got some suddenness to him. He's explosive. He's very smart. I wish he'd just play with a little bit more motor, a little bit more edge. But, that snap where he got the sack fumble, he struck that kid and got rid of him pretty quick. I wouldn't say there was anything especially savvy about it. It wasn't some dynamic rush move. He kind of got after the guy and got rid of him and, got his hips clean. But I think he'll get better and better as he goes. But, again, he's a guy that's played a good number of snaps. He's overcome a couple of injuries, prior to being here. But this is a guy we're excited about. I thought the combination of him and James at that spot worked well for us.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, appreciate it, everybody.
Kyle, first career start. How do you grade yourself? How do you look back at that performance?
Yes, sir. It was a good first game. It was good to be out there with the team. I got a few things to work on with technique and looks-wise, but we're going to fix that up, get in the film room, and be better this next week.
When you go into a game like that, and obviously it's a high-profile opener, it's an NFL stadium, any nerves going into that initially, or does that settle down pretty quickly?
Yeah, sure. Obviously there's a little nerves, but, it's good nervousness. I felt well prepared with Coach Moore. We had a week or two preparing. I felt pretty confident going out there, and I was excited to be out there with the team.
When I talked to you at Media Day, you mentioned about the communication and being sort of the quarterback of the offensive line. How do you feel you did in terms of identifying and making sure everyone next to you was on the same page?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I felt like the communication was pretty solid. I felt like the guys were all on the same level throughout the game. There was a couple plays where I could have cleaned it up, but overall I felt like the communication between us five, even the tight ends, was pretty solid.
I guess for you, being your first reps, now you get the experience of a short week with having one less day to prepare for Vanderbilt. What's the mindset for you this week of making sure not only preparing for Vanderbilt but also getting your body to the point where you're fresh and ready to go?
Yeah, we're gonna take it day by day. Obviously it's coming up quick. We're gonna get into treatment, rehab, and all that good stuff, and then obviously the film room. We've already been on that, so. This week, just fixing up all the little details with techniques and the looks we get, and cleaning up all the little things.
What was your, biggest takeaway coming out from that South Carolina game, just maybe how you played, or something you maybe realized during the game, and just kind of when you were walking away, what did you kind of think about just the game as a whole?
Yeah, it was my first game, so honestly, overall, it was fun to be out there with the team. For my first game, it was a good experience, good crowd, and then obviously, like I said, just the little things for this next week, fixing them up, cleaning them up, and try and be a better group up five for this next following week.
The defensive line got in the backfield quite a lot against South Carolina. Is that something you've seen throughout fall camp as it's progressed? And were you surprised at all how effective they were?
No, sir. Us five, we're going to put our head down and work every play, and whatever the outcome is, it is. And we're going to just go to the next play. And obviously, we don't want pressure on drones. All those stats or whatever with drones is, mainly because of us. And as a group, we're going to fix that and be better this next week.
Were you surprised how effective your defensive line was against their offensive line? I mean, you guys have gone up against your defensive line all preseason camp. Were you surprised about how effective they were at getting to Sellers?
No, sir. We got a great defensive front. And we got a lot of depth too, and a lot of guys who have great pass rush, good run stop. Kamari is one of those guys who's just dominant, whether it's in the pass game or the run game. And it's huge for us as an O-line to be able to go against that during camp and even throughout the week, getting good looks from them. And they're great players, and it's awesome to go against them.
You mentioned getting a look at Vandy last night. What do you notice from their opener about their defensive line and things you guys will need to do?
Yeah, they got some big interior guys, and honestly across the board. So we're gonna use our technique and trust what Coach Moore's teaching us, and try and perfect that and do the best that we can.
For this group, you're getting thrown into the fire with back-to-back SEC opponents. Would you have asked for anything better just to really test yourself this early?
No, yeah, I think it's awesome. It's great going against great competition. I think it'll be good for us, confident-wise. Gaining that confidence throughout each and every day, each and every week. So, yes, sir.
Kyle, have you always been a center, or is this something new for you?
So in high school, I was a tackle, so I think that helped me athletically. And then coming into college, I obviously started at West Virginia. I got put right at center and learned kind of how to run the offense as a center, be that key piece in the middle. And Coach Moore's done a great job with teaching me how to lead as a center and play dominantly.
What is the biggest change when you move from outside like that to the interior? Is it just responsibilities? What was the biggest thing to overcome initially?
Yeah, just communication. I think understanding defensive fronts, learning kind of the bigger picture, not thinking too much, but just like the little things. And honestly, communication is the main thing. And I feel like I've kind of taken that pretty well.
I know you had the mohawk in August.
Yeah.
Was that a camp thing? Have you just grown that out now? Is that not for the season?
Yeah, no, that was a camp thing. Just me and my buddies, my roommate Lucas Austin, we both did it just out of fun for camp.
I didn't ask you this media day, but how much did you learn from Brandon Yates playing behind him last year? He was a 6-year guy, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you got to learn a lot from him.
Yeah, for him, he taught me a lot, day by day. I was hurt throughout most of the season, so I was really in the weight room developing. But the second I got out there, whatever I messed up on, he was kind of fixing me up and teaching me like a teacher. And then being in the film room with them, Wyatt, all those guys, trying to learn little things each and every day and not think about too much the big picture, but just little things each day to fix and keep getting better at.
Let's go to Zoom for a couple.
On Zoom again, please use the raise hand feature to ask questions for Kyle. We'll open it to questions. Any questions for Kyle? All right, Travis.
Come back on for David.
Coach Pry and Coach Moore have both praised your just kind of playing a little bit as a veteran, even though you're still a very young player. Where does that kind of, I guess, experience, that mentality come from? Have you always kind of tried to play as a leader?
Yeah, I got to give credit to my parents. They raised me well, taught me how to be a man, and then, I love the game of football and I take it very seriously. So, yes, sir.
Anything else for Kyle?
Nice guy.
Questions for Dave? Dave.
Jaden, you guys got in the backfield a lot against South Carolina. What did you like about the way you guys as a whole kind of attacked and put them behind the chains a bunch?
Oh yeah, I think it was just great to see how the guys rallied back after that first series. We made the adjustments on the sideline, and just the leader stepped up, came, and we met as a defense after that first series, and we just talked about what was going to change and how we were going to attack this next series. So just seeing the guys overcome that adversity, it was very uplifting and very motivating for these upcoming games for sure.
I don't want you to give anything away, but in terms of adjusting and making those changes, what did you feel like was different about the way you guys played after that first series?
Yeah, I think first game was just first series was just getting warmed up. A lot of the things were self-inflicted wounds and stuff like that. So just watching the tape back on the iPads and just being able to correct those and going into the next series, being able to see things faster, kind of get a feel of how they play, how they move. So that first drive was always kind of trying to fill out the other opponent. So after we made the adjustments, we were ready to go after that. So.
Jaden, how do you guys come out of this first game? Is it disappointed by the outcome, encouraged by the effort? What's sort of the mindset right now?
The guys are still motivated. We had a player meeting that the leadership they spoke up and just what we need as a team, what we need to need to play both sides of the ball, special teams as well, and just to invest even more. So whatever we did last week, we just need to kick it up another notch, another degree. So the guys are they're bought in. We're ready for practice today, ready to go ahead and tack it just like how we do every other day. So that was kind of the message that we just told to all the other guys. Just whatever you did last week, try to find something a little better that you can get better at, something a little bit you can invest a little bit more in.
Not that you necessarily need extra motivation, but is there any this week with Vanderbilt coming to town, considering how last year started?
Yeah, for sure. Just the first game of the year, first game in Lane Stadium. Every time we step into that stadium is motivation. You don't really need motivation whenever you're playing in front of all those fans. So just the guys, we never lost motivation. So we're ready to go. We're ready to, like I said, we're ready to practice today. We're ready to continue to get better throughout the week, and we're ready to show what we can do on Saturday.
For last year's opener against Vandy, it was a little bit of a guessing game of exactly what kind of offense they were going to put on the field. In your early prep so far, is there a better handle of maybe what you'll be facing the other side? They put some stuff on film, obviously, last year.
Yeah, it's a better idea. What they've shown in the past. Obviously, they can run whatever they want, like the same how we can run whatever we want. But just having a feel of the quarterback, he's a great player. He's a great dynamic athlete. You got to be able to account for him in the run and the pass. So just being able to have an idea and have a game plan going into the week, it helps us as we build our practice prep.
You got experience what it was like trying to take down Pavia last year.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult is it to bring down someone who doesn't seem like that big but is built like a running back?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, he's kind of built. He's kind of stocky. He's a little twitchy, so you got to know where he's at all times. You got to be able to, shuffle your feet and make that tackle, and you got to be able to gang tackle him. So just have as many hats as we can to the ball, which I think we did a pretty good job of last year. We can do even better. We can kick it up another notch. So just by fixing all your mistakes, by just running to the ball and having a high motor team, how Coach Seepkes teaches us, we'll be fine.
You and Emmett got to combine for a sack of Sellers. How would you assess how Emmett played, especially, he got some snaps against Minnesota in the bowl game, but it seemed like with extra playing time, he seemed like he came out really well.
Yeah, for sure. Big time games, big time player stepped up, and he definitely stepped up for us. He definitely made a couple big plays for us, and we're going to count on him, throughout the season and later on in the season. So, just seeing guys like that grow and make those big plays, it's super uplifting, and we could definitely something you can feed off of, energy wise, and just seeing the guys excited for him, seeing him excited on the sideline. It was a great feeling just to see the younger guys make plays like that in big time games.
What stands out to you about Vanderbilt's tight end when you watch him on film?
Yeah, he's kind of all over the field. He's a receiving threat. He can kind of do it all. So just like kind of like Pavia, you got to be able to know where he's at the field at all times. You got to know how they use him, certain formations and certain points of the game. So he's got to be keyed in. Got to watch a bunch of film. Got to prep this practice as we're playing whoever it is, and just go out and execute our job.
You mentioned that the leadership meeting you guys held. What kind of feeling did you have leaving that meeting? It seemed like you guys are in the right headspace heading into this week.
For sure, yeah. The guys, we just assured the guys that don't lose hope. That we are in the right headspace, that we can go out and perform how we know we can play, and that was really just the message. Just to not lose our cool and just stay composed in this time, and even whenever it's difficult, and just go out there and put on a show for the next week. Kind of got to flush the last week and move on to the next one.
That leadership thing you're talking about, is that a normal meeting you do every week, or is that something you felt necessary to do after that last game?
Definitely felt necessary, just seeing where we was at the game and how close we were. It's just so we're just right there, and just to have the leadership, come together and talk to the whole team as a whole. I think the guys got the point and what we need to do and what we need to cut out from last week and what we need to continue to grow and improve in.
How many guys are in that group?
Really just about 15 guys, and then the whole team. So just player led, just in the team meeting room, just talking about whatever we need to talk about, what we need to get the point across. So at the end of the day, it's the players' plan. And, the coaches can coach us and lead us all the way up to the game. But at the end of the day, the players are the ones that are out there on the field. So
Anybody of that 15 step up and do most of the talking? It's tough to get 15 guys to talk at once.
For sure. Guys like KG, guys like KG, AG, KD, all those type of guys, just being able, John Love, all those guys that have a big influence on the team, that are just, that communicate well and kind of get the team moving in the same direction, all aimed at the same goal. So that was really just our main goal, just to get everyone realigned and refocused and, re-engaged.
You guys good? Anything on Zoom for Jaden?
We'll open it to questions for Jaden Keller on Zoom. Yeah, we'll go to Ryan, please.
Jaden, what has the team learned from last season, and how has it been communicating those lessons to the new guys on defense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think just, this off season, with Ferg and his staff is just really just the fight, and that we're very well conditioned, how our defense plays and how we run to the ball, how our offense communicates. We still need to take that next step and turn the knob just a little bit more on the communication and self-inflicted stuff, but we're very well trending in the right direction, and I'm impressed, and I'm proud to be on this team. I'm proud to go to war with my brothers every day, and I think that's really the biggest change in this team in last year. It's just like the team morale, just how close we are as a team as a unit this year. So just continue to buy into the process, continue to buy into each other, and continue to play for the guy next to you. That's really the biggest change.
Any final questions on Zoom? Okay, Travis.
We'll finish up in the room with David.
You mentioned strength and conditioning and Ferg. We talked a lot about that in the preseason leading up, but now that you've played a game, did you notice any difference, maybe yourself or just the team as a whole, in terms of after playing a game under Ferg's leadership in terms of strength and conditioning?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely in those later quarters, we definitely took like a kind of assessment of how we felt, and we felt like we had energy. We could have kept going, for however many quarters it would have took. But just the work that we put in the summer and the spring and the winter, all that stuff, you could finally, it's good to see it finally pay off, especially when you're out there in the game, you're playing the game that you love, and you can still go. So just being able, that was very uplifting, very motivating, just knowing that we're completely different in shape than we were in last year. And I see it a lot. I'm affected by it the most on defense whenever you see all those white helmets fly to the ball. That's just a great picture. So just as long as we can keep duplicating that, we'll be fine.